Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm so excited to have you here for 3 DIY gift ideas just in time for Valentine's Day. Making your own gifts is a great way to infuse a sense of personalization and make your loved ones feel special. So let's dive right into it. To make the first DIY gift, I took a glass test tube with a cork stopper. This one was around 15 centimeters long. Next, I grabbed some aluminum craft wire. I took one end of the wire and created a tiny loop. Then I used the end of a small brush to bend the wire into a little curve on the left side. Once I had one side of the heart, I bent the wire into V shape to create the bottom of the heart. Again, I bent the wire upward and then across the top to create the heart's arch. This is where the top of the heart shape will be. I finished shaping the heart by bending the wire downward, forming the opposite side of the heart shape. Once I made an estimate of the length of the wire I needed, I cut off the end. Also, leave a bit of extra wire at the bottom. Next, I started to thread these tiny gold-colored beads onto the wire. We want to take a moment to adjust the beads within the heart shape and ensure that the beads are evenly distributed. Once the heart shape was covered with gold beads, I switched to stringing red beads for the rest of the length. We want to leave some extra space at the top for the photo. I stuck a needle right into the center of the cork stopper as a guide for the wire to pass through. Then I stuck the end of the wire into the cork and pulled it through the other side of the stopper. I flattened the end of the wire and trimmed the extra length. Instead of keeping the wire perfectly straight, I gave the red beaded part a squiggly shape to make it look more creative. Take a printout of a photo with your loved one. We want to make sure it fits inside the glass tube. The dimensions of the picture I selected were 1.2 centimeters by 1.7 centimeters. First, I cut out the picture, and then to make it look like a Polaroid style photo, I cut a piece of white cardstock slightly larger than the photo. Make sure to leave more space at the bottom. Then I pasted the photo in the center of the cardstock, aligning it with the top border. Next, I inserted the photo into the loops at the bottom of the heart, securing it in place. Next, I cut out a 5 by 5 centimeter piece of brown paper and wrote a Valentine's Day special note. I used a pencil to roll it up into a scroll. To secure the scroll, I grabbed a piece of red ribbon and tied a bow. I cut the ends of the bow at a slight angle. To add some sparkle to our DIY gift, I grabbed gold and red glitters. Then I sprinkled a little amount of glitter into the glass tube. We want to make sure the glitters stick to the glass as much as possible. To bring it all together, I placed the photo inside the tube, added the handwritten scroll, and secured the cork stopper at the bottom. And there you have it, a heart-shaped photo holder with a personalized message, a heartfelt DIY Valentine's Day gift. To make the coasters, I used burlap fabric. I was going to make a set of 2 coasters as a DIY Valentine's Day gift. First, I folded the fabric and cut it to a length of approximately 22 centimeters and a width of 11 centimeters, which was half of the length. I folded it in half again, and after ensuring the corners matched, I cut the fabric in half. This way, I ended up with 2 11 by 11 centimeter square pieces to make the front and back of each coaster. Then I placed a piece of felt fabric between 2 burlap squares and traced it to match the dimensions of the coaster. I cut out the felt square, sandwiched it between 2 burlap pieces, and to secure the felt in place, I hot glued it to the bottom burlap square. I used felt fabric to enhance the sturdiness and thickness of the coasters. I repeated the same thing for the other coaster. Next, I grabbed this red polka dot cotton fabric. To cut out heart shapes from the fabric, I grabbed this MDF piece as a template and traced the shape onto the fabric twice to get 2 heart-shaped cutouts. After cutting out the shapes, it was time to paste them onto the burlap. To place the heart shape in the center of the burlap square, I drew a small vertical line along the center point as a guideline. I applied fabric glue to the back of the heart cutout and spread it evenly. Then I carefully placed the fabric cutout in the center of the burlap and pressed it down to secure it. In the same way, I pasted the other heart cutout. Once the fabric glue dried, I threaded a needle with white embroidery floss and secured the end with a few knots. Now for an extra touch, I decided to do running stitch along the edges of the fabric heart cutouts. I started from the backside of the burlap fabric, bringing the needle up through the fabric near the edge of the heart cutout. I moved the needle downward, inserting it back into the fabric a short distance away from where I brought it up. I continued stitching along the edge of the heart shape, ensuring each stitch was evenly spaced. I continued the running stitch around the entire perimeter of the heart. When I reached the starting point, I secured the thread by tying a knot at the back of the fabric. I repeated the process for the other coaster. Next, I used some hot glue to attach the top burlap square to the felt. I didn't apply any glue at the edges since I was going to do blanket stitch along the edges of the coasters. For doing blanket stitch, I threaded the needle with red embroidery floss. After that, I trimmed any irregular edges of the coasters. I began from the backside of the burlap coaster, bringing the needle up through the fabric at the edge where I wanted to start my blanket stitch. Moving the needle downward, I pulled it up through the starting point, leaving a small loop of thread. Then I brought the needle up through the loop and pulled the thread tight, securing the loop. I continued the blanket stitch all around the edges of the coasters, and I maintained consistent spacing between stitches. To finish, I created a small knot with the thread and secured it on the backside of the coaster. This completed our DIY heart coasters, an adorable handmade gift for Valentine's Day. I grabbed a small piece of golden brown felt to make the body of the bear. I folded it in half and drew this teddy bear on a cardstock. The bear I drew was 11 cm long and 8 cm wide. After that, I cut the shape out and traced it on the felt. I flipped the fabric to the other side and traced the shape again. Then I cut out the two bear shapes from the felt. With both the cutouts in hand, I placed one on the top of the other and aligned the edges. To hold them in place, I used sewing pins. I threaded my needle with dark brown embroidery thread and started blanket stitching along the edges. I brought the needle up through both layers of felt, securing them together. This stitch not only adds a handmade touch but also firmly connects the two bear shapes. Moving along the edge, I continued the blanket stitch, maintaining an even distance. I left a small gap to fill in the shape. To stuff the bear, I used some cotton balls. I fluffed them up a little and began stuffing the bear with cotton balls. For those hard-to-reach corners near the arms and legs, I used the back of a pen to ensure every nook and cranny was filled. As I progressed, I adjusted the stuffing to create a balanced and uniform plushness. Once the bear was stuffed, I blanket stitched the remaining area. I secured the thread with a knot and cut the excess. For the mouth area and belly of the bear, I used a beige felt. I traced the two oval shapes. To make the nose, I used dark brown felt. After tracing the nose, I cut it out of the felt. Next up, I cut out the two oval shapes. I threaded my needle with pinkish brown embroidery thread and blanket stitched both the oval shapes. I drew the mouth of the teddy bear on the smaller oval cutout and did backstitch following the pen outline. After that, I hot glued the nose on top like so. Once I was done making the nose and mouth, I hot glued this section to the face of the bear. Next up, I attached the belly with hot glue. For the eyes, I took two of these pearl beads and colored them black using a Sharpie. I applied two tiny dots of hot glue on the felt and added the eyes. Next, I grabbed a piece of red ribbon and tied a bow around the neck of the bear. After tightening the knot, I trimmed the extra ends at a 45-degree angle. To add a little more detail, I added a small button on the top of the bow. This completes our pocket hug bear. You can add a handwritten note to accompany this cuddly companion, making it an ideal gift for Valentine's Day. That's a wrap on our Valentine's DIYs. I hope you liked these gift ideas as much as I enjoyed crafting these. Thank you for watching, sending you all the love, and I'll see you next time.